This is video number 3 from my minerals lectures for my sports nutrition class. When it comes to the most deficient thing on earth, every human being is going to experience deficiency of water. That's called thirst. So you could say that water is the most deficient or the most prevalent of deficiencies. But if you really wanted to get away from water, it would be iron. And people have made the argument that about 2 billion people, 2 out of 7 billion people, are not necessarily deficient, but really don't have a consistent, reliable access to iron from their diet. Iron is important for a lot of things. The ones that we're most familiar with, I think, are making red blood cells, which carry oxygen. Iron makes, so that's hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen. Iron makes myoglobin, which holds oxygen in muscle tissues. That's why when you go to the grocery store and you buy steak or something, it's red at first and then it turns a different color because it loses its oxygen. But there's a ton of other enzymes that involve iron. Making energy in the body requires iron. Your mood, your neurotransmitters involve iron. So it's a fairly prolific enzyme, and deficiency in it, mineral, and a deficiency in it will affect a lot of the body. While animal products have a good reputation for iron, and they are a very good source, and meat, fish, and poultry, MFP, are like the best sources. There's no arguing. That's the way it is. If you even add steak or pork or fish or chicken to a meal that has like spinach, it improves the iron uptake of the whole meal. So not just as those animal products are a good source of iron, they help all the other things on the plate that have iron. The truth is, though, the vast majority of iron atoms in your body did not come from an animal. It came from a plant. Because these, like beans or beets, may not be a great source, but we eat a lot of them. And that's what it comes right down to. And for the record, if you eat whole grain cereal, I love whole grain cereal. It is a ton of iron. The last time your instructor at 54 years old had his iron checked, I was above 100%. My doctor said, don't worry, continue eating whole grain cereals. But I eat a lot of whole grain cereal. Vitamin C is another funny one. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, we know if you're eating plant or animal sources of iron, consuming something with vitamin C like peppers or oranges actually also improves absorption. It's kind of a weird mineral with all these things going on, right? So who needs the most? Women. Women need the most of childbearing age because they have a menstrual cycle. And when they lose blood periodically once per month in their menstrual cycle, well, that blood has iron. So clearly. Pregnant women need even more iron. And it's so much that we recommend they do take a supplement. Males need a lot less. Males are not losing amount of blood from their body on a monthly basis. Vegetarians are the ones who could struggle for iron because they're not eating animal sources, but that just means if you're a vegetarian, you can't live off cookies. You can't live off bread, oddly enough, which are enriched with B1, B2, B3, folate, and iron. But you can't live off those foods. You have to eat the vegetables and the whole grains and the nuts and the seeds to make for a well-rounded intake of not just iron, but we know protein and fat and all the other good stuff. So who's probably at risk for athletes, vegetarians, probably female vegetarians, which means you should be tested. Usually to play a sport, you're usually tested. You have a physical. There is a thing called adaptation anemia. That's basically when you're training really hard. There's an over demand for red blood cells, blah, blah, blah. You get this small drop in hemoglobin levels, but your body, by the way, can compensate and fix that. Because if you're an athlete, you should be eating more than enough iron, not just to cover this small drop periodically. The idea is that you lose some through sweat or whatever. I don't know. Maybe. The biggest folks at risk are female athletes. A, because athletes probably need a little more iron because you're very active, and B, because female athletes are most likely going to be of childbearing age. Deficiency is very, very, very famous, right? It's anemia. It's not just less red blood cells, not just less of them. You make smaller ones, that's microcytic, and paler ones that have less color, hypochromatic. So it's hypochromic, microcytic. But since iron's involved in so many other things, your temperature, your energy levels, your metabolism, your neurotransmitters, your mood, your attitude, all involved in iron deficiency. Pica is a really weird deficiency symptom of iron deficiency. We see this in pregnancy, where a pregnant woman would want to eat drywall and clay and dirt, which oddly enough are not good sources of iron. Toxicity is typically with supplements. That's going to cause things like nausea and diarrhea. There is a genetic condition where you overabsorb iron, so your red blood cells are darker than normal. Hemochromatosis, kind of interesting. Do you need a supplement? That totally depends on what your status is. If you think you're at risk for anemia, you owe it to yourself to be tested. Anemic athletes have a less potential to do best in performance because you're not carrying as much oxygen. What burns the fat in the mitochondria? Oxygen. What burns carbohydrate in the mitochondria with oxygen? Oxygen. In the mitochondria with oxygen. So slight anemia and you don't know about it will affect your performance. You've got to be tested. And then I'm going to end on zinc. Zinc is an amazing mineral. It's a you need less than, 11 and about 10 milligrams a day. It's involved in everything in the body: DNA synthesis, protein synthesis, immunity, wound healing, making sperm, going through puberty, all involves zinc. It is considered maybe in the United States, other than iron, like the second nutrient people are generally not deficient, but don't get enough of. There's more in animal than plant, true. But the rule of thumb is this, generally. If the plant or animal has protein, you're apt to find some zinc. It's pretty clear. So peanut butter is a good source. Beans are a good source. Seeds are a good source. Some leafy greens are a good source. I said peanut butter. And then all those bran cereals, which are fortified, they're all a really good source. Steak, of course, is a wonderful. So red beef is a really good source. If there's protein, you're apt to find the zinc. And then deficiency, we don't see it as much anymore. It may be in the elderly, not so much athletes, but in the elderly where they're not eating enough protein, they're on limited income. Maybe they can't, diet-wise eat a lot of protein-rich foods. If you get zinc deficiency, one of the biggest things we see is poor wound healing, decrease in immunity. You can get this scaly dermatitis that's all over your body. By the way, this photo has another photo where the legs are completely healed just with zinc supplements. This was in an alcoholic patient. Substance abusers tend to be at risk for deficiencies, just like vitamins and minerals, because they don't eat enough food and they're consuming a lot of alcohol beverages, which are pretty much nutrient poor. Toxicity is another rare one. Even zinc supplements are not that high in zinc unless you're megadosing them. If you were megadosing on zinc for whatever reason, yes, zinc, copper, and iron compete to get in. Megadosing on zinc could block copper and iron uptake. People who have genetic copper toxicity, Wilson's disease, are actually provided zinc supplements to block the copper uptake. And it's a very routine medical prescription. So do you need supplements for zinc? I don't think you do. This is my master's area of research. I think if you're eating a varied diet and maybe you take a Centrum or a multivitamin, you are more than capable of getting zinc from the diet. Individual supplements, don't take them. There's no reason to, really. There really isn't any reason to.